Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to start. I'm Patricia Kahane. As you can see on the screens, I didn't know that this would be out. I'm a founding partner of Act.Now, and I will be very brief with a short welcome. I would like to welcome Her Excellency, the Ambassador of Austria. Thank you for joining us this morning. I would like to welcome the mayors of Greece and Turkey who joined us. The representatives of many important organizations. What I would like to do now, we got a greeting message here from Italy. Sorry. We have a greeting message from the Chancellor of Austria, Christian Kern, who had a kind of patronage of our first Now conference in Vienna in January, and I'm just going to read it out to you and go on. So he's writing to us. At the first Now conference in Vienna in January 2016, I had the pleasure to welcome you as host of the ÖBB Austrian Railway Assembly hangar in Spittelau, Vienna. I was very impressed by the spirit of empathy and cooperation connecting the many mayors, local and regional politicians from Lebanon, Turkey, Jordan, Greece, Austria, Germany, and other countries during those 2 days. Mayors are experts who often act pragmatically, while others only do the talking. Mayors make our societies progress where others only stoke fears. I hope, no, much more than that, I am confident that the Now conference in Athens will be characterized by a similar spirit to the one of the Vienna encounter, one of large-heartedness, rationality, and deep humanitarianism.
This is not really an opening speech, it's just some thoughts that I have up there about what we are doing. Dear friends, the great city of Athens, which has seen many difficult and testing situations throughout history, seems to us an ideal, highly energetic site to host the second Now encounters of exchange of views and ideas in mutual respect. The participants of our first meeting in Vienna in January emerged inspired, more knowing, bestowed with new friendships and a deeper understanding for the confusions, challenges, fears, hopes, and dreams of the other. In times of massive drifting apart, of division, of the triumph of hate, of cruelty, of monstrous stupidity, of disastrous brute nationalism, and felonious contempt of humankind, there's an urgent need for groups of people who will approach each other with open arms and hearts, who will respect the dignity and uniqueness of the other, who are willing to help without pretensions, to listen and to appease shocks and fears instead of stoking them. You, women and men who have come together in this space, seeking plausible answers to highly complex questions and viable solutions for problems appearing gigantic, you form one of these groups. We ask for blessings upon our doings. Let's get on with our work. In fact, right now, act now. This is what I wanted to say. Now I hand over to Hannes Swoboda, the curator of this conference.
Thank you very much, André. Thank you very much, Patricia, for this initiative, which of course costs also a lot of money, and which is given by you to this event, but also to this whole enterprise, because it's not just one event, it's different events to deal with the question of refugees and how Europe should react to it. And I think it's a question of humanity, it's a question of reality and real politics, and we have to combine a position of humanity and real politics at the same time. And we have to see it from a European perspective and not only from a national perspective. I'm very happy to be here with friends. I know many friends for many years and worked together in European Parliament. And I got new friends also at the first conference, and that is certainly true also for this event here in Athens. The both countries, Greece and Turkey, which we will deal mostly, are very close to my heart. And they are all part of Europe. Unfortunately, one country, by action by its government, is coming away from Europe, and I don't know how and when we can bring the country back to European scale and to European spirits. And why? And that is why we are dealing specifically also with the Turkish situation, of course, always in connection with the refugee issue. Is it possible to sustain what we agreed? Is it not possible? How should we react? And that is a particular reason why we invited Piri from the European Parliament. Piri is the rapporteur of the European Parliament from Greece. When she asked me some time ago if she should take that responsibility, which I had once in very peaceful times, I said, yes, do it. I didn't know what it will bring about to her in negative and in positive sense, but I think it would be very worthwhile, and that was our idea, to invite Piri to say some words about how she, from a European perspective, sees the situation in Turkey. She was very often in Turkey. She was in Diyarbakir. She tried to help also the Kurdish people there, but for her, Turkey as a whole has to be seen from a European perspective, and maybe Kati, you can present some minutes, some ideas about how you see the tragic events in Turkey of today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all. And presenting in a couple of minutes what has been happening over the last days in Turkey is, of course, not an easy job, and part of it is, of course, also guessing. But what is my assessment? I think what happened on the night on the 15th of the 16th of July, the attempted coup, is a danger, was something unexpected. It was unexpected, I think, for many people in Turkey. It was certainly unexpected for many of us in Brussels, but I'm sure also in Washington. And what we saw unfolding that night was an assassination attempt on the Turkish president and his family in Marmaris. We saw attacks on the parliament in Ankara. And strangely enough, we saw a reaction which we haven't seen for a long time in Turkey, a united reaction from the political parties, all parties in the parliament, even the pro-Kurdish party and the AK party, who we know are engaged in a heavy political fight, but of course also because of what's happening in the southeast of the country. The four parties together came out with a joint declaration that they are not in favor of this type of coup attempts. It was the same when you look at the media. President Erdogan could address the nation actually through one of the remaining opposition channels which is still there. It was CNN Turk, which belongs to the Dogan group, which in the end gave the president the opportunity to address the nation through his iPhone, through FaceTime. And in a way, this was, of course, the media, which was, of course, also under heavy pressure and is still under heavy pressure over the last years by this government. I think in the Netherlands, a lot of people think that this attempt, this coup attempt, looked very unprofessional, and with it came all the talks that perhaps this was an attempt which was launched by the government. I think in the days that followed the coup, we can see that many people were involved in this in the army. It was not just an attempt by a small number of people. It was much broader than that. There were certainly some Gulen supporters in it, but also others in the army who decided to launch it. And it was brought forward because a purge was ongoing. So they knew the government would move again against dissident voices. And that was probably why the timing of the coup was brought forward. And despite all the criticism and worries, I think, that many of us have about how the Turkish government, especially over the last 3 years, has been dealing with fundamental rights, has been dealing with press freedom, I think we all acknowledge that this is not the way to change a government. And we also saw that the Turkish population, especially, also doesn't think this is the way to change a government. Now we are, of course, in the aftermath of the coup attempt. What we see now is a state of emergency for 3 months having been declared. And yesterday also the Vice Prime Minister has announced that the European Convention on Human Rights will be, for the time being, be disbanded. And of course they are referring to France there, where we have seen a similar case after the attacks in Paris. I think it's very important to know that even though with a temporary suspension of the European Convention on the Rights of Human Rights, there are still 2 issues which the Turkish government cannot do. One of them is to reintroduce the death penalty. This is also under these circumstances not allowed, and I think the European Union also made clear that this will be unacceptable. If this is happening, and we know there's a debate ongoing in Turkey, it immediately means the end of the accession talks to Turkey, with Turkey to the European Union. The second part is torture. Torture cannot happen. It never can be justified, even if there is a temporary suspension of the European Convention on Human Rights. And of course, when we now see some of the pictures of the coup plotters, we have a strong feeling and concern by human rights organizations that torture is happening. I think in the next weeks and the coming months, what we hear from friends in Turkey, what we also heard yesterday at the dinner, how certain groups are now going on the streets and increasing the polarization. The country is already so polarized. And what we saw in the immediate aftermath was a political unity. And my hope is that somehow this unity can be found in Turkey, because it's not just, we will discuss today, of course, very much also the EU-Turkey refugee deal, but apart from the EU-Turkey refugee deal, for us Europeans, for all the Turkish people, a country with 80 million citizens, 3 million refugees, the second biggest army of NATO, it's so much in our interest, in all of our interests, that the country returns to its democratic path and is not going further into authoritarian trend. That is, of course, the big question now. How will this event unfold? 60,000 people have been directly affected by the coup, 10,000 arrested in the last 5 days, 50,000 people displaced from their schools. Will these people's individual rights be respected? That's a big question, I think, for all of us. I very much hope that Turkey can remain on the democratic path, can find the unity, the political unity again, that we saw in the first hours after the coup. Let this also be a lesson for the government, that they need a free media, that they need an opposition, and when it comes, like I said, I think to the EU-Turkey deal, for us, a bigger question is there now. Can this country remain an important, democratic, stable ally of the European Union? And the worries, I think, are widely shared here in the room. I'll stick to there because I know in the first panel we'll be discussing the direct consequences of the EU-Turkey deal and what's happening now in Turkey. So thank you very much.